consent calendars with items 5, 18, and 24 being pulled.
Move approval, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Do I hear a second? We do need a second to move forward, folks. There is a motion before us. I do need a second.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion to the motion with items 5, 18, and 24 being pulled. Remainder for approval. Hearing and seeing none, call for the vote. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, that action passes unanimously. We're now to public comment on the consent calendar. I do have two people that want to speak on the consent calendar items being pulled, both for number 18. So first is Larry Jensen, followed by Jack Magny.
Good morning. I'm Larry Jensen, resident of Willits, California, and wanted to speak about the amendment agreement with Leonard Charles on the Harris Quarry. First of all, I think it's a great thing that he's asking for more time and more money to do a more thorough job on the EIR. I think we all learned with the draft EIR how woefully inadequate it was, so I'm glad that we're taking this seriously and amending that. However, as I read through the amendment itself, I find a couple things that are quite disturbing to me. The first is that it has embedded in it an expedited schedule. And I'm very curious about why we're expediting this particular EIR, since it so significantly impacts the county. I don't see any need to rush this. I think it's great that we're doing a more thorough job on the EIR, but I don't understand the expedition of it. And so if you haven't had the time to read through that, I encourage you to do so to make sure that there are good reasons for doing that. The second thing that I find disturbing about it is that there's no, in there, seemingly no chance for public discussion. I think that if the person who's doing the EIR thinks there's so many significant changes to it that he needs more time and money to address them, I think it's significant enough to bring the public discussion back into this consideration. So when you do discuss this issue, I'd like to make the request and encourage you to reconsider this expedited schedule, A, and B, seriously consider opening it back up to public discussion, because I think the changes are significant, given the fact that Leonard Charles thinks it's significant changes, and given the fact that this thing affects every square mile of the county. This is not just about the Harris Quarry. You're asking for a change in the zoning code for the entire county. I think it's serious. I think we need to get a good final EIR, and I think it ought to be open to public discussion as well and public input. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Monnier?
I'd like to just get to this right away because it's a little bit extensive.
Please state your name for the record.
I'm Jack Monnier.
Okay.
And I received information Friday, October 18th from the Planning and Building Services request of board consent to execute a contract between the county and Leonard Charles and Associates for additional work needed as part of the EIR process, including expedited completion schedule for the final EIR. The changes and additions by the applicant include improvements and widening to Highway 101, heavy equipment changes, more generators, more trucks, et cetera, et cetera. In other words, the project scope and impact were grossly underestimated at the time of the draft environmental impact report was being circulated and commented upon by concerned citizens and expert analysts. Perhaps a waste of precious time and money by all involved, since now that effort is rendered invalid by the applicant's changing of the goalposts. Indeed, many of the proposed changes seem to be in direct response to obvious deficiencies, inaccuracies, and misrepresentations pointed out by ordinary citizens during the review process. The tail is still wagging the dog. I quote from my letter dated 2/11/2008 concerning DEIR. This DEIR has the look of a conclusion first, and then a struggle to make the pieces fit, a rush to justification for bad behavior, inherent bias toward approval of this DEIR begs for closer scrutiny with outside examination. The above quote from 2/11 would seem to have even more relevance now since it has been uncovered that the board is contemplating not only giving its consent on this proposal, but actually putting it on an expedited schedule to target date of December 16, 2008. For the record, we should state here that Leonard Charles had requested 10 weeks to complete the draft EIR, while the county is pressing for 7.5 weeks to meet their December 16 deadline. As for also for the record, Leonard Charles himself warned the county should be aware that this expedited schedule provides no time for county or legal review of the administrative FEIR. It is for others to conclude whether or not this frenetic push for approval relates to possible election changes forthcoming, but it does beg for scrutiny. According to Leonard Charles, there were 610 written comments and dozens of oral comments during the 3 public hearings on the original draft. The arguments pertaining to the zoning change into the Harris Quarry expansion project were 20 to 1